hope to find you well. How are you today? Looking to add YouTube, not YouTube, the tweet to tell everyone we are live. So, welcome. There we go. We're live. I should find an automation to do this. Okay, cool. Very excited about today. We are going to deep dive into Laravel Sail, one of my go-to tools of the business, right? I'm betting that if you're following, most likely you have at least heard about it, and yeah, let's go. So, starting to share my screen. There we go. And just to make a quick recap from last episode, we'll see where we left. Just for the case that you didn't, that it's the first time you're watching. So if someone at home right now, if someone could tell me how's the sound reception, that would be cool. I have to change setup. I need to be able to check this live. Yeah, I have the cables in the mail right now, so hopefully they will come soon. Okay, I think we're good to go. And in the last episode, we have just put to work not one, but two Docker Compose stacks, right? So we have been running locally a web application that builds an image simple Docker with this context and Docker file. So it's a node application running all the, not running, but building from all the project folders, ignoring the Docker ignore declarations, and we map it from port 80 to 3000. We also have a database with persistence, right? And add miner running in port 8080. And this would be for development. And for production, we would have just the web application. Database would be in a different server. And that's it. It would map to port 3000. And ideally, this port is not open to the public. And it would go through a reverse proxy that will answer in, or will respond to the requests in port 80 and 443. Of course, 80 would redirect to 443 with SSL. So yeah, this is kind of the setup. I advise you to visit the last session. So what's happening is that we are having a web server, database, a miner to administrate database. All of these are running inside the host development, right? And all of this is stored in the repository with the project files and this Docker Compose. So right, now we are going to see a more evolved setup. That is what is used with Laravel style. So let me bring our guide. I have to make these uh, marks with the timestamps and make it available, right? Do I have a typo saying that? Oh no, it's okay. Episode 4, right. So, episode 4, we've done this quick recap, right? And right now we will dive into Laravel style. Not dive exactly. So, introducing. We won't be checking how it works underneath, at least for now. So I wouldn't call it a dive. So, what's Laravel style? It is a development environment for Laravel. So it's a PHP framework and is running totally in Docker from installation until development with multiple services. And it is already built in if we install Laravel with the installation for Docker, right? So this is what we're going to do. I would advise you to come to this documentation page and check everything that is part of this. I would read it, right? Easy read, fun read even, arguably, but I would say for sure it is, or at least it was. And what we're going to do right now is we are going to install Laravel with Docker, right? We see it here. And we are going to use the macOS guide, but given that it's Docker, you can use it in whatever system we want. And we'll get started on macOS just by issuing this command. And also we can customize what services we want if we want to choose any of these. So we can choose a database flavor, cache. Search is an Algolia alternative search engine, right? Minio is for S3 compatible storage, and Selenium is for automated end-to-end testing with Dusk framework, and Mailhog is to capture sent emails or mailables sent from the framework. We will preview them on the browser. Right, and also it's possible to install a dev container for VS Code, I think. Yeah, it is. So there's more on that later. So we would have tight integration with Visual Studio Code. I'm not using personally because I'm using PHP Storm, but it's just a matter of taste. It works with there's not only one right way to do it, right? So let's go back into a version. Okay, so whoops, one too much. And we are going to install a fresh Laravel, right? So installing a Laravel application with Docker. So what we're going to do is just copy this command. We just need Docker Desktop installed, so that's pretty much covered by now. And we're going to the shell, and we will call it, yeah, I have another application to show, but for the starts I want to guide you all along. So let's run just this, and we're going to call it live demo, right? I will delete it afterwards. It's just for us to use right now. So going to run it, and this will issue few commands. We can check what's going on while we wait, as we are live, and we have to wait. Commands will be running inside a Docker container. So what is going to happen, we can understand already, right? Because if you've seen the latest episodes, you should be able to interpret this. So that command we issued will pull this text from this endpoint and will run these commands. Okay, cool. So first we're checking if Docker is running or not. And if it is, we will run a Docker command. We will remove the created container. After exiting, we are always going to pull the image, no matter what. Because if this image would already exist in our machine, if we were not to run with this argument or option, we could be using a already existing version. So what this is going to do is be sure that downloads the latest available version, because this latest, as we have seen, this can be not dangerous, but we might run into issues if we think that these will always point to the latest version. No, this is just a string like any other. The only difference is that if we do not explicitly use it, we can use just the first, the reference, no tag, right? And it's going to grab the latest tag, the string latest tag. Okay, cool. So we are mapping the working directory into inside/opt, and we are going to use workdir opt. So issued command will be in this working directory. We are going to download this image. So it will already have PHP 8.1 and Composer and npm and more, I would say. I'm not exactly sure about npm, but I would say so. Even so, it's not running it, I think. So what we're going to do inside that newly fresh container that has the working directory mapped, we are running the Laravel installer with the name that we gave. We are running inside, running PHP artisan cell install with these services that we could have customized via the query params. We are going inside, we are going to pull those images, we'll build the container, we will prepare just colors for the output, and after this we will put the permissions back as they should be for the upper operating system on the host, and that's it. With a little bit of luck, it's already finished, right? Where did we leave it? Here we go. Yes, and it's exactly asking for the password. And there we go. So if all went well, we now have a folder, live demo, right? That was installed inside the container. And that container no longer exists or is no longer running anymore because of the --rm. So what we're going to do now is just to, well, inspect what we just finished to install. So I want to create not sure if we're coming back today to this project, so I will override in this window. So this is pretty much a standard Laravel freshly installed application with a tiny difference because it has a Docker Compose file And let me just start a repository and make a first commit. That's it. We can come back after some changes. And now we are able to interpret this Docker Compose, and we'll see that we have few services installed. So for the services, we have Selenium with this image. It's declaring a host explicitly to be used to map this host to the host machine, right? We are mounting a volume and attaching this container to the sail network that, you guessed it, is declared on the compose. We also have some volumes for MySQL, Redis, and Meilisearch. And there we go. Mailhog with image, ports, and networks. Meilisearch using a named volume, right? So it will persist data until the volume is deleted, right? It has image, ports, volumes, nothing new until here, right? But there's also a health check command that Docker Manager will know to run to be sure that this container is healthy. Redis is also mapping ports to the host machine. Networks, also a health check. MySQL with MySQL Server, ports, environment variables declared that are also using variables from the .env file that we have right here, right? And if you are having a concern with having a password very easy to guess, I would say, don't worry, because this is just the development production, right? So it's just running in your machine while you're developing it, and this of course will be not for production, right? So Laravel.test, I left it to last, to it's last, but it's not least the least. It's exactly the opposite. There's more to digest. So let's check what's under the hood. So to build the container for this service, it's the web application, we need to use this context as image builder. So this is coming from the vendor directory where Laravel file is running. We can check that. So we go into vendor, Laravel file, and runtimes 8.1. And this is the context while we're building the Docker file. So let's do it. So it's running Ubuntu 22. And let's go. We don't need to go into every detail. You can do that later. We are running that recipe to install the operating system, so to speak. And of course we're updating repositories. We are installing all the PHP dependencies with some pretty default development. We covering lots of stuff like Xdebug, code coverage, SWOL. You might not need all of those in production, but for development you have all those goodies. What's more, we're installing Composer, Node version 16, also I've just seen it for database clients, MySQL client, Postgre client, Yarn and Node, and all of these will be available in your development container. Um, we are enabling PHP to use privileged port because it's mapping 80 port, adding a user and so on, and defining entry point as start container. And these will be files that are copied from the context. Remember that um, folder. They are copied, and the relevant is, well, start container has some magic under the hood so that you can run it as a service, or you can also run it from the command line, and we'll see that just in a minute. So there's not much to worry about it, just it's someone took care of that for you, of course, Laravel team. And what's here to understand from a developer perspective is supervisor. So what's happening here? Let's do a little bit of sketching, I think. Will be a good thing to do. I will make a second page, or just making this smaller so we can work. I can even go to the drawing now, or sketching, and I want to have right now for Laravel style. Okay, we're drawing in orange, no problem. So we have our host machine, and as we've seen, we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 services running just with one command. For the sakes of, I don't know, sanity, we have multiple ports, but we will not worry about all of them. I know we have 80, 30, 3306. We have more, but it doesn't matter for the exercise now. But you know, there are the mapped ports, and also we will have 6 containers. So we'll have MySQL container, Search, also Mailhog, right? Redis, Selenium, and I'll do this on purpose, you will see why. So Laravel needs more space, but for now it's good. Laravel, right? And this one is serving port 80, right? And it's mapped, whoops, is mapped 80 to 80 port and whatnot. But all these containers will have some external ports, so you can use them from other operating systems, but also they can speak through each other through the internal network, right? I'll show you just in a moment. For instance, we have Docker Compose config, right? So there is one network called Sail, which has this name, and will run, if you remember, everything is inspectable in Docker. So Docker inspect, whoop, it's not this, it's, we have to explicitly network inspect. Let me check, how can I do this? Docker network inspect, and What's the network? Uh, Live demo? Oh, it's not running, so silly me. We would have uh, all containers. So let's lift this thing up. So let's run vendor bin sale up, right? And it's bringing everything up. And right now, if we run that, if we were to issue that command again, docker inspect that name, sure enough, we have some output. And we can see, I'm going back from top, we'll see all the relevant data about the network as the base, and look at these key containers. We have all the, so this network is from the gateway is my host, and this is the subnet, and we have all the containers running with an IP on that subnet, right? So they have that local network inside, and they can reach each other using this IP address, or even better, the host name, so that if everything changes, don't get any communication broken or your application broken. So this is what I meant by all the communication. But now I want us to focus on the Laravel container itself. Because if you remember well, each container should have one process running, and today we will see that, well, that's not always the case. I mean, responsibility-wise, because yes, for sure, there's only one process running. I'm just giving this context because the Laravel container in this stack, or in this compose, right? It has running, or it is running, supervisor, which in turn will issue more processes, meaning that, for instance, if you would need to experiment or tinker with a cron job and you wanted for some reason to run it, you could, because we are running PHP artisan serve, right? We could also run cron, or leave a worker running, all these under supervisor, or as we know, we could make some kind of simple setup for production that would have similar, but not running artisan serve, but instead running nginx and also FPM, so another service under supervisor. But all of these, you ask, will be under one process. So this one container has really to be one entire monolith, and this will be okay for the most part of the applications, but we will also see how we'll cover this in a different way. So this might be convenient for you to extend and use more services. You might feel tempted to do it that way. Of course, you could also run cron or worker with artisan commands. So you could run, if I'm not forgotten, artisan schedule run, right? And you could also run artisan QE work, right? But You also might want to do this. You might want to put one single container, one single instance running with all of those. If it's good for your use case, you can, because why not? And that's it for the technical part, or theoretical part, I mean. So from now on, let's dive into the thing. What can we do now? We see the output running in the top window, or top tab, and we'll check Docker PS, and sure enough, we have these containers running from 5 minutes ago. So we see that we have laravel.test service, right? Also, Docker Compose put the folder name before and incremental integer after as a suffix, so to avoid collisions. And it did the same with the container names for the other services. So you'll see this pattern. Also, you will see the issued commands, and notice that entry point, the entry point when we're running a entry point instead of a command. Okay, I will not override it, but say we were to run a command instead of an entry point, we could override it. But as we're using an entry point, anything that you add after, it will be also added in front of start container. So take that in consideration. This is just for you to grasp some concepts. You won't need any of that just to develop and be happy. So we'll see just that from now on. We have a freshly started infrastructure, and because we have .environment file set in place, right? From .env.example is after it's going to be updated where it makes sense, like generating artisan key. Also, because it's sale, it changed the password, but it's even so sensible. Well, those environment variables were passed to the MySQL command. So it already provisioned that database for us. Also, we are creating a testing database. So yeah, because this file exists, it will create that. Whoop, we can check the inside. So it will be in vendor, Laravel, style, database, MySQL, creating testing database. So this is creating this database also. So if we were to connect, and we can, of course, connect to the database, we will see DB database created and also testing. So we will see live demo database and also a testing. Let me try to find what can I use. How was that name? I don't remember. Okay, opening, just in a moment. No, here I'm not using so much. So create connection, MySQL. So sale is whatever. I'm using localhost because it's the port is mapped right into my localhost. I'm going to use sale and password, right? So sale and password. I'm gonna test connection. All is good. So I'm gonna save it and run it. So where can I see databases? If I can, if I'm reminding, yeah. So you see, we have already live demo database created and also testing database created. So it's conveniently enough, we are testing the application in MySQL, and we have two databases so that you don't mess with your local environment when you're testing. So this is also another convenience. And we have Samuel in the chat. Hello, hello, Samuel. He's saying, hey Patricio, hope I haven't missed much. Well, I think you lost a little bit, but I'll also say that I think you should know all of that. It was introducing to Laravel style, so I think you won't miss it in terms of the big thing, but maybe go back. Maybe I mentioned something nice. I'm not sure. Let me know. Um, Thank you for joining and for the hello. Always nice. So, um, so, where was I? Right, I have the database, two databases created, and sure enough, now we can go into the next topic I want to talk you about. That is the sale helper. So, you've seen that we have a sale magic helper for us to run commands. So I ran docker sale hub, and sale as it's clever enough to know that you want to run a docker compose command. So it will issue under the hood docker compose up, and also take care of the user permissions depending on what operating system you are. So yeah, we can use this for instance, detaching or build, or just like if it were a docker compose command. Something we can also do is just to, if we make an alias for sale, so you can do this and put in your profile, alias sale equals to that, meaning that from now on you can just run sale and it will be easier and easier to type, of course. And look at what you can run. So we can run docker compose commands, we can run artisan commands after sale, right? So any artisan command available. What this will do is it will issue that command inside the running container, right? How cool is that? So you can also run PHP commands, composer, node, npm, yarn, database, debugging, run tests, all kind of tests. So from feature, unit, end to end, and paint the CS fixer layer of Laravel. So we can also go into the container command line interface. So let's do that. Let's run sale bash, for instance, and right now notice that we are sale user inside the container. So it's like if we were to SSH kind of thing into the server. Um, it's an analogy, storytelling kind of thing. Of course, this is a container running inside your machine. And yeah, from here we can run commands like if you were right in your machine. If you run it from outside, you can also do the same. It will take a little longer as it has to go inside the container, and if you were already there, it would be faster. So before issuing the command, let me reply to Samuel. He's saying, thanks as always. We'll rewatch after the stream. Always nice to catch the stream live. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for everything. Cool. So let's run sale artisan and migrate fresh seed. Whoop, dash dash seed, and let me bring back table plus, right? Where was it? And we will connect to live demo database, the default, right? So we have no tables showing. If you're watching and you don't have table plus subscription, I can recommend some other things. What's the other one I have installed? You will find many clients, but this one is actually really cool, and Beekeeper Studio. And there's another one, Beekeeper Studio. Well, at least if you want to find a cool open source, free, full stack, not full stack, multiple cross platform, right? You can run client for many database infrastructure and on Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. Also, so there's that, just a tiny recommendation you can do. So right now we are running migrate fresh. Just remember, I just ran sail up, and after this I'm issuing this command, and just by that I now have a full MySQL engine running in my machine, my dev machine, and I just migrated fresh the database. So this way I have a development environment that the repo is at right now, and all members in my team would have the same. Let me just find some code. So it didn't run either. I mean, it did, but it's commented, I guess. Yeah, it's still the same. So I am to run again. And now we see there's now a test user, and as always database is not the password is not very difficult. It's in the factory, in the user factory defined, so it's just password. So you might want to use that with Laravel Breeze or Laravel Jetstream if you want to quick start your application. And for now, I think we're going forward. What could we do? Oh, of course, we'll make sure that all this is running, right? So no, it's not this that I want. I want to check what's running, and let's just be sure that we are running on port 80. We are running the web server, and also 5173 is mapped, and this is to use Laravel Vite so that the browser can connect to the host machine, and it will really go inside to the Vite. So we can do, for instance, sail npm run dev. I mean, first we have to install. The typo worked because you can even just run npm I. And in Composer is the same thing, and also in Artisan. So if the unique string, so let me run npm I, because there's not repeatable, so it's unique letter, we can do that. Same with Composer, for instance, and same with Artisan. So say I wanna optimize clear, I can do just Artisan, so sail Artisan OC, and this will run optimize clear because there's no collision with other commands. So we installed npm dependencies, so now we can check. We'll have node modules. You see it just appeared. Here it is. we have node models installed, and of course I have node installed in my machine, but I wouldn't need it because it's running inside the container. So let's go again inside, and from here you can see we have, of course, we ran in this npm and with this node. So what we'll do next is npm run dev, and it's running inside the container, um, the vit build. And what we did is we started building this application, right? So basically it's just importing Lodash, and that's it. Breeze will have some opinion about that. We have a we do have a front end, but it's just a welcome page. I'm so used to always install Laravel Breeze, and I'll show you that in a second. So Laravel Breeze is for me the most sensible starter kit. There's also another one is called Jetstream, but for me Breeze is more clean, and it will give you everything needed for the initial authentication and a private dashboard. We can do that just right now. We need to require it. No, I think it's for another day because we are eating 45 minutes. There's more stuff I want to show you, but this will be covered in another live stream for sure. Some live streaming more related to Laravel development, not so much with Docker, right? So let me check the chat. I actually learned that trick from you, and I now rarely type full command for npm. Oh, so that's cool. Or anything built on top of Symfony console, Composer, Laravel console, etc. Yeah, cool. I was not reminding you. Okay, so um, we're running npm. We just stopped it. We are going back to the. We want to see the browser running, right? So let's just go into localhost, and sure enough, we have it working, and it was served by our freshly installed container. So if you are new to Docker, I think if you haven't exactly used it, notice that everything we've done in this episode we could have done in a freshly installed um, computer. So like nothing installed, just out of coming from the store, you install Docker, you install a text editor, and you could do anything just within this time, right? Because everything is taken care of. So each container will grab from Docker Hub the base image that they have. Just this container is customizing that base image. All of those are already built, so they are used as is, as you remember. So yeah, all of this is provided to you by Docker. So let's make sure we're working with this. Let's come to the routes file where we can change that output. And instead of the view welcome, I'll return another string that will be hello simple docker folks, right? So if I were to refresh, sure enough, I already have simple docker folks. So we are 50 minutes in. I will show you our base that we will use. So starting from just a project like this, freshly installed, I prepared one application for a talk that I've done the past week. I will tune it and most likely make it better versions of those. Uh, and I've made an application just like right now, and we will uh, install it again like if it wasn't our project, and we'll take it from there. And why do we want to do that? We're not going to develop Laravel application in this series. We are just uh, taking care of Docker stuff. And what we'll do is we will start using multiple environments for the deploy and those kinds of stuff, development, staging, production, and I want to cover that, so we'll do just that. So we are 51 minutes. I'm concerned if there will be enough time to show you everything. Yeah. So I already have that application is also open source and public. I'll have to make that available. And let's inspect what's going on. So locally, what do we have? We have a Laravel.test application. So same as the Laravel default, Laravel sale, sensible defaults as a starter. We have a MySQL database. We have Redis for queries and cache. And we have something different now. We have Sockety that is meant to be a pusher alternative, open source, so it respects the same API, and just by hosting this container I can have WebSockets in the application. And of course I could run it from here, and yes, and I will, because as we are not looking into Laravel development right now. What I were to do is to just clone it from fresh, and after cloning from fresh we would copy .env.example, we would generate a new artisan key, and that's it. Well, notice something that when we are connecting into the database, in this case we need to use a host considering from the container, right? So if we're using Laravel container and we want to connect to MySQL container, then I have two options at least. Since MySQL port, I'm in trouble now. How will I draw 3306? So say there's a mapping, port mapping. We have two options. We can connect Laravel connection, the database connection. We can make it going to the host machine like we did with Table Plus, but of course it will be more efficient to go directly to the container, and cool enough, we can reference it just by the service name. So this is why you will see DB host as MySQL and also Redis host as Redis, and opposed to if you were not to use Docker and the stuff installed in your machine, you would put localhost. But if this was to take localhost as a value, then it would be this container connecting to localhost, which would be itself. So that's why. Okay, cool. So we've got the basics covered. So I'm just going to stop this sale environment, and notice like my machine is clean, not running any containers, right? Not at all. And some point in the future, if I come and just were to bring it up again, I didn't run the command, right? I would bring up all these services with all the persistence that we've done, and yeah, I can have multiple projects, and each of them might have their own services, their own containers, and I can bring them up whenever I want. Of course, if you there's no sense in that, but if you wanted to keep one MySQL running outside of this compose, so it would be just like one container running MySQL and then multiple projects, and they were to use same database. This is essentially what you're doing when you don't have in a typical Valet installation or a chump, you will have multiple projects and use MySQL from your host. But in this way, notice that each project might have its own version of MySQL, and yeah, that's truly convenient. So again, we are eating the time. Let's just see our application, the other one, because this is stopped. So I will quit it and I will go into the application. You might have already noticed the demo, compose, dev and prod, and that will be for the next episodes. Also docker compose.dev and a YAML that it's grayed out. It's just a different alternative because docker compose in this project is being git ignored, right? So if I were to, I can just delete this, right? If I were to just clone this repository in this moment, um, I can issue commands like docker compose, but I need a default file, or to be specific, sorry, uh, I need to run docker compose and be specific about what file I want to run, or if I want to use the default, I just have to copy. So I want to use docker compose.dev, and I want to make it a file with the default convention, and now I can use development. I can even tinker with it, and of course if I want to commit any changes, I would have to do them in that file. So what I'm going to do, just to be sure, I will do sail down, and this will delete all containers and networks still up. And the chat has something, but I'll be there in a minute. Also, let's do sail down dash v, and this will delete all volumes, because sail down will not delete volumes, it will just delete containers, networks, and I think that's it. So what we have to do is to also delete volumes. We'll have to be providing an option for that, and sure enough, this compose project already had a MySQL volume being persisted and a Redis volume being persisted. So right now we can be sure there is nothing running. It's issuing again, but of course that command, that volume does not exist anymore. For sure, but I will even check it. Docker volume ls, and let's grep inspire, and well, there is mail search because it's an orphan volume that it's not declared right now. It existed before. We can docker volume prune, I guess, and all volumes not in use will be deleted. Of course, this might affect other volumes not being used at least by one container. This container doesn't have to be running, So yeah, uh, be sure to be safe when running those kinds of commands. For me it's not an issue because as we're running Docker and everything is in the repo, I can just rebuild any project at a given time, no problem, and bringing back everything. So we just stopped everything and we'll see this application working. But before, Samuel is asking, do you prefer Docker dash compose as opposed to Docker space compose? And the answer is no, I do not prefer any. It's just a matter of I'm so used to it. Most likely I will have it. Yeah, I do. And but sometimes in some VPSs, I don't have Docker compose inside the native API, right? Maybe because of a version or probably just that, right? Docker version. So it was just integrated from a specific version. I don't remember 19 something or 20 something. So yeah, they are equivalent. They respect same API. It's just a matter that um, of me being used to put dash. And sometimes something that happens a lot is to write Docker Composer because my fingers already are ready to put a composer word, right? But luckily enough, I always put an alias, even in alias in a server, always DC alias to Docker Compose all the time. So yeah, that's why. So let's bring this thing up without further. Whoa! Sorry, not DC, because I mean in macOS I think is okay, just in and Linux also, and only in Windows with WSL might be an issue with permissions. Even so, not we're using sail, so let's remove everything again and sail up. And it's up already. We can see the outputs of the several containers, right? And what's more, let's bring another session. Everything is fresh, so I want to run sail artisan, migrate fresh dash dash seed. So everything is cool. And if my memory is not tricking me, I can just run localhost. Right, I need to build stuff, so let's run sail npm run build, or run dev if you want to change files. Oh right, because I installed I will delete node modules because I installed it from my machine. Sometimes I do that, but it's just by a matter of convenience for me. It depends a lot on what project I am and versions using. I've said this before, but I always use latest PHP, latest Composer, latest Node, NPM, PNPM, and so on in my host machine. Um, so yeah, I might resort to that in the first place just by convenience. Um, but it's good to have Docker around because we can npm install using the versions that it needs for that project. So in a current project that might not be a problem, but say that I'm on a clean computer or in a cloud environment of some sort and we need to run it with inside the container, we can, right? And what happened was that those dependencies were installed taking in consideration my platform, which is macOS ARM64, and when I was running it inside the npm run build, it went into troubles because it was running in a different platform. So we are running out of, we already hit 1 hour, and hopefully enough this will finish soon. I should have used P and PM. It's way faster. Next time we'll do just that. Also, it does not help to be inside the Docker container writing so much files, because in macOS and Windows we have more latency using that. It's gone way better in the latest versions. But yeah. So now we can npm run build, and Samuel is sharing again. So same here, already on the latest versions of Node v19. Whoa, so that's living in the edge. Um, Typically I put the latest LTS, I forgot to mention. And PHP, or maybe even not, I'm not sure anymore. In PHP 8.1, courtesy of Homebrew. Oh ho, so what happened? Something more. Top level await is not configured in the target environment. I think I know what's going on. Uh, if we run npm run dev, we'll be just fine. It's already compiled, it's running. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm running build, we are running for SSR also, is it? Vit build. I think it's related to that. I'll have to check that later. But okay, we are running it again now. And both web server import 80 and a Node version, Node Node server serving the assets built with Vite are mapped to the outside machine, and sure enough we have already the application that we have just cloned. And what does this application do? It's just a proof of concept to be online, to be used. I'll use it further later. And for this talk I've done something that I ran a poll in the audience where people could vote for their Portuguese beer, most likely the commons one. Yeah, people, I was asking before the talk, what kind of beer do you drink, or what's the best beer, without saying what was it for. So people just put beer names in the user group. And yeah, if I were to vote in one beer just randomly, I would be able, let's check what's going on. We would vote, and yeah, the result comes in, but I'm not happy because this should have been done via WebSockets. So let me just check what went wrong. So maybe it was just slow. What happened? If I were to vote to Musa without having to refresh, I would receive a message to do a new network request. So yeah, not happy about this. Live coding always has. So we are connecting to localhost 6. It should be. What happened? I will refresh manually, so that's shame on me, right? This would have been done by voting. No, what's happening? I know what's happening. Sorry. We have to, let's bring that up. We have to go to Sailbash, okay? And we'll run PHP artisan QE work. So the 3 votes that we've done, what are they doing? They are, when a vote happens, uh, there's a network, where it is, track. So there's the browser, right? What's the symbol? You might use Chrome. Don't go from my design skills. So there's a network request. Wanting to vote goes inside here, and it's interpreted by Laravel. Laravel will serialize a job to broadcast, so it will put a Redis job, and then the worker running differently from the web server will grab that job and deserialize information, and then after this it will run a HTTP request to the Sockety container that it's not here. Let's just pretend it was this one, and sure enough the browser would already have connected via WebSockets, and because Sockety knows and broadcasts here, broadcasts that someone voted, and finally this application was to retrieve again all the votes. So hopefully enough, right now I will vote for, let me refresh just to be sure. I will vote for Erdinger and OK, and without having to refresh, of course, I can now vote again. So I have to wait 3 seconds between each vote, just so that people would not be voting all around. So yeah, this is it. We have this application up and running with those services we've seen. So a web server, database, Redis, and Sockety, and all of these I brought it up to life in a matter of 5 minutes, all inside, all thanks to Docker, and I could do this, and we will do this in production in a live server, and we will even see something more, how we can a different setup, not only using supervisors. So yeah, having different setups. Maybe I'm getting ahead of I'm get ahead of my speech, right? Because this will be for the next session. So Samuel, everyone, more if you have any question, now is the time, because I'm about to close the session for today. We'll keep tomorrow, hopefully, or the day after. Not sure how many days I will keep it every day a session, but let's see. And I was not putting the chapters to complete, so more work for me later, and I will have to put these as soon as possible. But show must go on, right? As long as we are getting the stuff out, the sooner we can all take advantage of Docker platform. Samuel saying thanks as always, and of course my pleasure to be here with all of you guys. Samuel, thank you again, always there, and I'm always happy to share and explore new stuff and share knowledge. Let me know please what you think, how are you enjoying. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to receive notifications about the next episodes. And yeah, I want to cover the Docker basics, and then starting also to make more Laravel content. So please share some feedback, let me know. Thank you again, everyone. Seeing live, seeing from after recording. So thank you so much. And as always, happy coding. Ciao.